Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the College Sports Hive. That's Leaf. I'm Scott. We are here to preview some great matchups, one in the Big Ten and one in the Big 12. Seems like we're constantly doing that in this season of basketball. They're the two best conferences in my opinion, and it's not really that close. But with that being said, we have two amazing matchups that are going to take place tonight, and the first one to go down will be, let me find it, Baylor and West Virginia. It's going to take place at Tuesday. It's going to take place tonight, March 2nd at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Baylor is 18-1 on their year, 10-1 in conference play, first in the conference. And West Virginia is 17-6. They're 10-4 in Big 12 play, and they're second in their conference. Let's hear your thoughts right off the jump when you hear Baylor, West Virginia are going to be suiting up against one another.
Guard play is going to be a huge thing. I also think it's going to be an up and down game. West Virginia has really sped up their attack, as we've talked about a few times since the departure of Oscar Tshiebwe, and they've really grown into their own recently about how they're going to play in these systems. Miles McBride has been awesome. Sean McNeil has shot really well, and Taz Sherman is kind of the X factor in my eyes. When he shoots well, they're very, very difficult to beat. And then as for Baylor, we talk about their backcourt all the time. You got Jared Butler, Maceo Teague, Davion Mitchell, and Adam Flagler. And I think that those backcourts need to match up. And then you've obviously got Derek Culver on the inside, and Baylor's going to have to put some shorter guys with big bodies, Mark Vidal and Jonathan Chamwa-Chacho on him, and see what happens. But I'm really excited. I think these are the two best teams in the Big 12. We've talked about how there's been kind of a chase for number two behind Baylor. And I think West Virginia has differentiated themselves from the rest of the group. So I'm super excited for this one. And I think Miles McBride against Jared Butler and Davion Mitchell in specific is going to be a really fun battle.
Yeah, this one's going to be amazing for sure. Before we get too deep into the episode, let me preface that we are going to pick these games. We're going to get to the end here, and we'll pick each individual one and give some reasoning as to why. So if you were looking for that in the picks episode, that will be taking place in these episodes. All right. So let's talk Baylor. They're coming off their first loss of the season. They were on pause for a while, and they came back and won two games, but lost the third. Basically, in my eyes, if they were to have come out and won all three of those games, it would have been one of the more impressive feats of the season. And just personally, they got really tested by an Iowa State team that's not very good in their first game back, and then ended up losing the third game of that scenario. What do you make of all of that and Baylor's first loss of the season? I think it was something that you knew was going to happen after you heard they were going on pause, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think their pause was different than Michigan's per se, where Michigan was doing it out of caution. Baylor had, I think I saw 8 players had it for Baylor. And whether that's impacting their lungs, their conditioning, how much they've practiced, it was evident in the Iowa State game, even more so than the Kansas game. It's just that Kansas is a lot better than Iowa State, so it ended up being a loss. But I thought they were better against Kansas than they were against Iowa State. I think it's a really tough situation to be in where your players were in such a groove. Baylor was playing the best basketball in the country, in my opinion, prior to their pause, went on pause and came out looking shaky. So I'm hopeful that the signs of wearing off the rust that we kind of saw in the second half when they chipped into the Kansas lead are signs to come of we're going to see the Baylor from before pause. But I am nervous. If I'm Scott Drew, I am nervous about how my team performs against a team that likes to run like West Virginia. Will they slow the pace? Will they try to play mano-a-mano? Because I'm not sure you want to play with that type of team, because Bob Huggins knows how to make teams work. He was pressed Virginia for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. You look at this Baylor team; they've fallen to third in the KenPom rankings. They're fourth offensively in efficiency and now 16th in defensive efficiency. This is a team, though, in Baylor that leads the league in 3-point shooting, leads the country in 3-point shooting, I should say. They're second in the country in points per game, and they're sixth in field goal percentage. This is an offense that flat out knows how to score. And they were on their run before their pause, we would just compliment how well their offense fits with their defense, and they continuously play that style of game. They make it hard for you on both ends of the floor. It just didn't seem to be the same flow, the same kind of commitment to both sides of the ball that we saw from Baylor after coming off of pause, I guess is a good way to put it. So I wasn't surprised to see them go down. I know that a lot of people were. That's the number 2 team in the country. A lot of people were saying they should be number 1. But with that being said, I don't think that necessarily drops them super, super far. Kansas was playing great basketball to come into that game. It's a big win for Kansas. Do not get me wrong. Not discrediting anything that they did. But I think Baylor is going to come back with some vengeance here. And they're going to play a really good game here against West Virginia. This is going to be their first game after that loss. So I think that's going to really play into this one and have sort of that offense and defense factor in. Let's not forget, this is a game that was supposed to happen last week and got postponed to not have them play 3 games in a week. And so that gave them a little bit more time to rest, a little bit more time to prepare and get a little bit stronger and things like that. So I think a lot of that's going to factor into this one. I really love what I've seen from West Virginia. So that makes this all like very hard, because I do believe these are the 2 best teams in the Big 12. But what makes you confident in West Virginia going into this one?
Just that they're playing a lot of really good basketball and they've found out their identity, whereas Baylor coming off pause is going to be trying to reestablish their identity. So I think the way that West Virginia plays, with the pace that they play, they like to play quickly. They like to shoot threes. I don't know if Baylor is ready for that type of physical game that could happen, especially on the interior with Derek Culver. I mean, he works out your defense like crazy. It's just a rigorous task to play West Virginia. And if I'm at all compromised in terms of lungs and just overall fitness, that makes me nervous. And West Virginia, like I said, it's Taz Sherman and Sean McNeil. When they shoot well, they're almost unbeatable, because they're going to play hard. They're going to have Derek Culver be a walking double-double, and they're going to have Miles McBride being a potential All-American. And so you just got to, if I'm Baylor, I'm going to focus extremely hard on Sean McNeil and Taz Sherman and just hope that they miss and we make them miss. But I'd definitely be nervous if I'm Baylor, because West Virginia is playing very, very well. And like, when they lose, they've lost in double overtime to Oklahoma. Like that's a good loss.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely agree with all that. Give me some of your keys to this one, is to see how you kind of see this playing out a little bit for both sides.
Yeah, I'll start with the Mountaineers. I think it'll be really essential that they run the shooters of Baylor off the line. Don't let like Adam Flagler hit a bunch of threes, Maceo Teague hit a bunch of threes. You need to rebound the ball and use your size and Derek Culver and say, like, look, if you're going to put someone who's as the tallest guy, 6'8", I'm going to make you pay. So that's the biggest thing. So that's my next key, is Culver has to dominate. And the big key is those 2 X factors. Mcbride, you really hope he has an All-American caliber game. And then Sherman and McNeil need to make contested shots, because the Baylor guards are going to keep you in front. Like, that's what they do best. So you need to make some of those jump shots that aren't gimmies, and make shots that good sharpshooters make. And that really gives West Virginia a chance. And then as for Baylor, I think you just got to limit Culver. You're going to want to push the pace, or sorry, I shouldn't say push the pace, maybe control the pace. Whatever you think factors into your style of play better. I think they could have pushed the pace with the way they were playing prior to break, but now I wouldn't want to run with West Virginia if I'm not fully in gear. And then I feel like you just got to make your open shots, because West Virginia, for all we say about their defense historically, they haven't been great this year. They give up a lot of points. They just score a lot more. So you got to make your open shots like they've done all year, leading the nation in 3-point percentage. And then just an individual matchup I love is Jared Butler versus Miles McBride. And then on the other end, presumably, you got Miles McBride going against Davion Mitchell. And if you can get the better end of that exchange with pretty much, I'd almost guarantee Jared Butler's going to be an All-American. I think Miles McBride has a real chance of being second or third team. If you can get the better of that, and then you have got Davion Mitchell who could win Defensive Player of the Year. If you can get the better of that exchange, you've got a great chance to win if you're Baylor.
Yeah, definitely. Another one that I'm really looking at is how sort of the bigs of Baylor, and that's going to be a group effort kind of go against Derek Culver in this one, because Derek Culver is just a monster inside for West Virginia. His presence is posted on every single game, and every single good performance that West Virginia has, he's contributing something, whether it's points, whether it's rebounds, whether it's both. It's big time. He's a big time big, and he makes a lot of plays. So how do you kind of see them kind of going against him in this set? Because let's be honest, the Baylor bigs are stocky, they're strong, but they're not necessarily as tall as some of these other big men in the country.
Yeah, what they have to do is one, they're going to have to disguise coverages. Like if they're going to double, sometimes you double on the catch, sometimes you double off the first dribble. But you're going to need to do your work early. And what I mean by that is you're going to need to use your size to your advantage, or the lack thereof. You're going to need to get low and push Derek Culver away from the block. So we can't just have turnarounds and hooks. Make him dribble to get near the rim and live when he scores over the top of you from 10 plus feet. You just can't let him get super good at position. So I think positioning is enormous, and just staying disciplined. Like Derek Culver draws so many fouls, and he's not a great free throw shooter, but he's vastly improved from years prior. So you don't want to put him on the line. I think a lot of teams kind of have bailout fouls when guarding him. I think that Baylor, their bigs are very athletic for what they lack in height. They've gotten strength and athleticism, and just challenge those shots, make him make those shots, and trust your offense to be part of your defense. Meaning like you're going to score points, so might as well not give them free points to compensate them.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that. All right. Any final thoughts on Baylor and West Virginia before we get some picks in here?
I think that covered it. I'm really excited for this one. I've been looking forward to that one for a while, and I think it helps Baylor that they got a little bit of time to play West Virginia, even though they lost to Kansas. I think that actually helps them in the long run.
Yeah, I would agree. And once again, this is the number 1 team in the conference in Baylor against the number 2 team in the conference in West Virginia. Baylor is ranked 3rd in the country. West Virginia is ranked 6th in the country. It's all going to go down tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern time. All right, time to pick this one. Who you got winning this game, and some reasoning as to why, and let's go with a score as well.
I'm going to go with Baylor. I think that their guards are going to make life really difficult for West Virginia's guards, and I just think they're really hungry. They didn't want to lose this season. They had a real chance of going through a very difficult Big 12 undefeated, and got hit with a tough predicament and having coronavirus. I think they're going to bounce back, and they're going to look good in this one, and make life hard enough on Mcbride and Culver, the 2 best players for West Virginia. So I'm going to go Baylor 84-78. I don't think their defense is a top-notch performance, but it's just enough. And then they're coupled with their really good offense. So I'm gonna go with a close win, but it's comfortable enough. So give me Baylor 84-78.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go Baylor 83-76. And I think this is a game where it's basically if Baylor's able to get it done in any sort of fashion, it's a great win. I think that can go both ways with West Virginia and with Baylor. Whoever wins this is completely in the driver's seat of what's happening in the landscape of the Big 12 moving towards postseason play. Baylor's not really in jeopardy of losing their number 1 positioning, but that's going to give West Virginia so much momentum if they're able to win this game. I will take Baylor, though. I think they have the pieces. They have the guard play. They have the bigs that can rotate through and disguise different coverages to kind of combat Derek Culver. And also they're going to be hungry. They're going to come out firing, and they're definitely going to need to. Let's not forget that. They're going to need to come out and play hard and play fast and try and be a little bit more competitive on both sides of the floor than they were against Kansas, because if they come out and have a performance like that, I remember when you texted me first about that Kansas Baylor game, they had like 4 points through like 7 minutes of play, and that's just not Baylor basketball. And so they're going to need a much better performance, because something like that is not going to fly against a West Virginia team who's playing as good as they are. But with that being said, I like Baylor's chances of doing just that. So give me Baylor 83-76. So with that being said, we'll turn our focus back to the Big Ten. We have just a tremendous matchup that's going to take place a little bit later tonight on 7 p.m. Eastern time. Both these games, I'm assuming, are on ESPN, just back to back, and just tremendous scope of games here moving forward tonight. This is going to be number 4 Illinois at number 2, Michigan. Michigan's just playing tremendous basketball. This is the highest they've been ranked all season after that Baylor loss, but they are absolutely deserving of the number 2 spot. They had a great performance against Iowa last week. And with that being said, I'm really, really intrigued by this Michigan team and what they're going to be able to do in postseason play. But also, this is an Illinois team coming into the game with an announcement that Ayo Dosunmu is out for indefinitely, and so as of right now, he's not going to be playing in this game against Michigan. But me and you both have our kind of hesitations about that. So let's start there and talk the biggest factor for Illinois. Do you think he's going to be on the floor or not?
I'd be pretty surprised unless he has a concussion that they haven't told us, because all we know is about a facial fracture, which I'm breaking it down to a broken nose, and I have a hard time seeing, especially Ayo, like maybe some other players, but Ayo is like the grittiest, toughest dude in the nation. I have a really hard time seeing him miss out against playing against the number 2 team in the nation, the number 1 team in the Big Ten. So I think he will play, because indefinitely is until they say, oh, Ayo's good to play. But unless he has a concussion, I expect Ayo to play. I still think that they're a really good team even without Ayo. They just hand the reins off to Andre Curbelo a little bit, let Adam Miller and Andre Curbelo have expanded roles as freshmen, let Trent Frazier play a bigger role in offense, and then just feed the ball into Kofi incessantly. And I think with Ayo, that the fact that they got that experience without him could really help them in the long run, because then when they return back to supplementary roles, they could really stand to improve from the experience they had playing bigger roles. And I think Illinois has got a chance even without Ayo, but obviously you'd really prefer Ayo to play against a team like Michigan.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk records a little bit here before we jump too deeply into this one. Michigan's 18-1 in their season, 13-1 in conference play. Illinois is 18-6 with 14-4 in conference play. Michigan comes in at the number 2 team in the KenPom rankings, 5th in offensive efficiency and 4th in defensive. Illinois comes in at the 6th overall KenPom ranked team, just 2 spots below their AP ranking, 10th offensively and 17th defensively. All right, let's talk Michigan, because they have a big 3, as we've been starting to label them, of Hunter Dickinson, Isaiah Livers, and Franz Wagner, who are not only scary good and scary athletic, but they're all long and lengthy and big. It's basically a 3 through 5 big 3, which you don't necessarily see that often in basketball. And so let's talk these guys and what let's talk them first, and then what Illinois is going to be able to do to combat those 3, because they're going to have their stamp on this game regardless.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing in this game to me is how Illinois combats the size of their big 3. Usually big 3 entails guards, but this is a truly big 3. All of these guys are NBA build 3, 4, and 5s, and they all have tons of versatility. I mean, Hunter Dickinson is going to give you what you think. He's going to go into the post and he's going to pick and roll. Franz Wagner could even be a point guard at 6'10". Like he's that good of a passer, that good of a distributor. And then you've got Isaiah Livers, who I think is what makes Michigan tick. Last year, they were really good with Isaiah Livers, and they got it to number 4 in the nation. And they're nowhere near as good as they are this year, as they were last year. But my point is that when Isaiah Livers was healthy, they were a top 10 team in the country. Isaiah Livers goes down, and they were middle of the Big Ten. And then he comes back at the end of the season. They have an uptick again. Isaiah Livers, what he does is he spaces the floor, allowing Wagner to drive, and Hunter Dickinson's ability to post up and have that gravity as a roll man to create space for the rest of the team. So I think that's the biggest thing, is how does Illinois combat with that size? Because they play, I wouldn't say small, because they have Kofi in the middle, which just makes everything look small. He's an enormous man. Kofi is like the Shaq of college basketball. And I mean, they play Jacob Grandison and DeMonte Williams kind of alternatively, and they say, hey, we want you to be our kind of like do it all, the Mark Vidal for them. He's their glue guy, very dirty work. But I don't know if a dirty work type of guy, and you have 2 of them, but only one plays at a time, it's going to match up very well against that type of size and versatility. So to me, that's where Michigan wins this game, is just with their big 3. Just the pure size is what concerns me for Illinois.
Yeah, definitely. I also think Isaiah Livers is an underrated shooter, just personally. He's able to shoot from the outside and knock down some big shots. And he sneakily had 16 points against Iowa. And he wasn't even the biggest piece of that game. Franz Wagner had 21. So I really think that the way they're able to kind of feed off of one another, but these three guys is something that's going to pose a lot of problems here for Illinois. I'm really excited for the matchup of Kofi Coburn on Hunter Dickinson. It was so fun to watch Dickinson go against Luka Garza in that matchup with Iowa. How do you think that matchup's going to go with what Dickinson's been able to show both offensively and defensively so far this season against a humongous human being, Kofi Coburn?
I think Kofi is just this physical specimen that could actually move Dickinson. I think Dickinson could just put his body into Garza, and because he's heavier than Luka, he was able to impact a lot of stuff. Whereas Luka's usually the biggest guy on the court. But I think that's a big deal is who can take away the other, because most teams have to help on both of them, and these two should be able to play straight up. And another big thing I want to speak about is foul trouble. Both teams have quality backup big men, Austin Davis for Michigan and Georgi Bashavashvili for Illinois, but you don't want the backup to be in there against the starter. So if whoever is able to impose their will more, create some fouls, could really change the impact of this game. And then I think that Michigan's guards are slightly better than Illinois' forwards are in comparison. So Michigan has advantage forwards, Illinois has advantage guards. I think we could agree on that. And I think the biggest difference is that Michigan's advantage in the forwards is a little bit wider than the advantage for Illinois in the guards, assuming Iowa plays. Even with Iowa playing, I think that's the case. So that's why I think I'm going to go with Michigan. It kind of gives away my pick, but I just wanted to draw that comparison of the advantages. I think are wider in margin for Michigan than they are for Illinois.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with what you said, though, about Illinois' guards. Kurt Bellows is just an excellent passer, and I would assume it was just a do-it-all guy. And if he kind of has that that feel of he's going to come and play into this game and have one of those, like you see in the NBA all the time, like, oh, the mask Kyrie, the mask LeBron, some of those performances where they just come out and just absolutely tear it up in one of those masks that look like they're just absolutely terrible to play basketball in. But with that being said, I think if he does play, that's presuming he does play, and hopefully they consider health above everything else, obviously. But this is a huge spot, and definitely I would be surprised if their best guy isn't out there on the floor, and they're going to do everything they can to get him out there. All right. Any other final thoughts, any other final keys to this one for you, other than making a pick?
I'll put out a little I guess you could just say X factor for the game. And I kind of hinted at it as Jacob Grandison and DeMonte Williams are kind of the glue guys. And I think one of them needs to really step up and help scoring, as well as limit Franz Wagner and Isaiah Livers. Because they both score 4 points per game, a little over 4 points per game for Jacob Grandison. He's their starter. He's an excellent defender. And DeMonte Williams comes off the bench and was starting earlier in the year and has 5 points, 5 rebounds per game. I think you're going to need a little bit more volume from those guys. And then I think they're going to need a great performance out of Trent Frazier. He's a senior. He's the veteran of this group who played a big role early in his career and now is taking a backseat to Io and Kofi. And he started getting that big role back with Io, missing these last few games. I want to see him have a really good game and stretch the floor, presenting more space for Kofi to do his thing against Hunter Dickinson and not let people sag in and make it harder for Kofi than it has to be. So those are kind of my keys for Illinois to compete, but I'm good to do my pick that I kind of hinted at, and I think we'll probably lean the same way, but I still expect a great game, especially if Iowa is able to play. Yep.
Who you got?
I got Michigan. I think you just got to go with the more complete team. I also think they're playing at home, which is always it's a comfort thing this year that, they're playing at the Chrysler Center. They can do their thing. I'm going to go with Michigan 78-71.
Yeah, I like that as well. I'm going to go Michigan. And I just think I agree with what you said about Illinois' guards being better than Michigan's guards, but Michigan's forwards being better than Illinois' forwards. I just think I think if you're breaking that down, I think Michigan's forwards are better than Illinois' guards at this point, and especially with that kind of hesitation of whether or not I would assume is going to play. I think the only pick to make here is Michigan. They're playing some of the best basketball in the country. I really do think they have a legitimate chance to at some point this year become a number one team in the country. I love what they're doing. So I'm going to reward that with definitely picking them in this one. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be very well contested. Illinois always finds a way to hang around. I have yet to see them get blown out this year. So now book it. Illinois is going to get blown out. But but no, anyway, I'm going to go Michigan 81-78 in this one, and I guess go Wolverines. I guess I'm kind of wearing Michigan colors.
But yeah, I was going to say you've kind of turned yourself into a West Virginia and Michigan man. It fit both of these previews.
Yeah, definitely. It was clearly not intended. It's not. It's very unbiased. It's just Under Armour. It's not Michigan or West Virginia. But no, two tremendous games that we were able to break down for you. Any final thoughts, Lee, before we sign off?
I got a question for you. Who is the best player in West in any of these games? Like overall, you got Jared Butler, Miles McBride, Ayo Dosunmu, and any of the big guys, any of the big three from Michigan that you choose as your best player. I'd say Franz Wagner is the best player out of Michigan personally.
That's a good pick. I think it's either him or Ayo personally, and I think it's either healthy Ayo or Franz Wagner. I think. I don't know. I love Ayo Dosunmu. That's just personally, but
I was just saying for Michigan, I'd take Franz over Livers and
oh
Pickens.
Yeah.
I'm saying out of the four games, the four teams that we previewed in these two games, who do you think has the best player? Jared Butler, Ayo Dosunmu, Miles McBride, or Franz Wagner?
I think it's Ayo personally.
I think I agree. I think he just does the most for his team. I think Jared Butler is going to be a better pro, and I think Franz Wagner might be a better pro as well. But Ayo, I think, is the best in the college game. So hopefully he's able to play in this one.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that's going to do it for us. Once again, that's Leaf. I'm Scott. This has been the College Sports Hive. Make sure to shout out, like, comment, follow, subscribe, all those good things. Tell everyone we're doing big things. We're making money moves. So enjoy, and we will catch you next time. Continue to stay safe, be well, and see you soon.
Have a good one.